Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the 817 podcast. Today, we're really excited for an interview that we've been trying to put together for a while now, and finally just made the time work. EJ, who are we talking to?
We are talking to Dante Williams, owner of Dig Construction, Contracting, and as well as one of the founders of Community Frontline. Dante is a genuine leader in Fort Worth and in the Eastside, and I think it's perfect that we're getting him here around our Eastside development conversations, budgeting, and just kind of the economic growth of Fort Worth. And so here's Dante.
Hey, what's going on? My name is Dante Williams, and my Fort Worth story is really I'm just a kid from the city, right? Just a kid from the funk, born and raised here from Fort Worth, and have lived all over the city, but my roots are definitely Eastside. Brought up by a single parent. My mom was 14 when she had me, so lots of story that goes into that, man. But came up through the thick of it. Definitely during the 90s. As a kid, went to several elementary schools. Planted at Wedgwood during middle school, and then graduated from the great Dunbar High School. I'll be a Wildcat, who be you? But went off to college and made my way back. And as we went out to Prairie View A&M University, and after college, I came back to Fort Worth and saw a lot of the same things that I saw growing up, still a factor in the East Side and low economic communities. So really myself and a group of friends, group of brothers that I grew up with, man, we decided to actually put some things in place to where we can actually begin to help alleviate some of those issues. And that was by way initially of a men's Bible study. And we did that for about 10 years, man. And then from there, it turned into Community Frontline around 2016, 2017, really on the kind of offset, or as police shootings became extremely on the forefront of the nation, right? You had Philando Castile, we can go down the list of names, but what we wanted to do was tackle the issue before the issue became a bigger problem here within the city of Fort Worth. And so we really started having meetings, talking with guys, building relationships across the community, as well as just kind of, building relationships. Again, it was weird because, being from Stop 6, Eastwood, it was just like, man, we don't have relationships with the police. But we said, hey, we got to figure this out. How do we get ahead of it before this thing comes to pass here in our city? And unfortunately, it did on a couple occasions before George Floyd with Tatiana Jefferson and Jaquavian Slayton. Those shootings really kind of, put a spotlight here on our city and things that we needed to impact and change. And so, I kind of went all over the place there on my Fort Worth history, man. But so that's me in a nutshell. Married, got 4 kids. They're growing up here, man, loving it. My wife's from Dallas, so I give her, but she gives me a little grief all the time about Dallas and Fort Worth. But she's here, so it's her home now.
Well, I think that's cool, adding the family to the conversation, because where do you want to see Fort Worth for your kids, if they choose to live here? Like, what is something you want to see for them as the city grows with them?
Yeah, man. So I think right now, so we still live on the East Side. And what I would like to see is just the city become a lot more, and I'm gonna say inclusive, but what I mean is more like culturally inclusive in terms of what's available for and I'm just, I'm a Black guy, so I know you guys may not be able to see me on the podcast, but for Black kids, right? A lot of times our kids begin to get involved in different things or different activities just to, if they don't have good options where we live, right? So a lot of times we have to take our kids to Arlington or to the other side of town to actually get involved in certain activities, or whether it's dance, ballet, art, music, where do we go? So I think that's one, just as they continue to grow up, like providing those type of, and even if it's, so, a big thing right now is like street racing, right? So if kids want to get involved in racing, and a lot of kids enjoy that, right? I mean, you may remember EJ growing up, man, we had biker boys, we had, was it Fast and Furious,
Yep.
right? So a lot of kids, like, we enjoy racing. So where's like a racetrack that we can go to and let kids go and just kind of, all right, you want to race, you got your license, you got all the right stuff, go and do that. Or even music, like where's a good music studio where kids can go in and just create, whatever the type of music is they want to listen to or they want to put out and produce. Like how do we get stuff like that going? So for me, as my kids kind of matriculate through school, that's one thing that I would really love to see, is just more opportunities for them kind of within the community we live in. Because right now my family is fortunate enough to be able to kind of move around and do some things and find those options without too many barriers. But I know a lot of families that can't. And I would say, just future wise, like even as they graduate, whether they go off to college or they want to start a business or whatever it is they want to do, just really seeing a space for young professionals, right? So I think that's one thing that we lack in our city is, I think there's opportunities, right? I think there's job opportunities. I think there's opportunities for entrepreneurship. But the after hour hangout, go and socialize, like there's not a whole lot of places, if any, where you can go and say, okay, I can go here and just be myself and let my hair down without having to try to like blend into whatever the Fort Worth culture is in some of those spots, right? So there's not really a spot like that. So I would love to see that more so now happening. And then when they get there, they can kind of have that. So they don't have to go to Dallas, Atlanta, Houston,
DC.
They can do everything here in Fort Worth. So I would love to see kind of that happening for our kids in the future.
Yeah, kind of talking more about that last piece. Like, Lancaster has potentially a lot of money coming in to help redevelop it. You own a construction company. Like, what do you think can happen in the Eastside to like help maybe create more places like that? Like, we've seen Black Coffee become such a hub for the community over here. Like, what do you think needs to happen to get more cultural centers in place like that?
Yeah, so I love the idea and what they're trying to do with Eastland. So we're located off of East. I can't even get it out right now. East Lancaster. I got these retainers in my mouth, man. It's hard to get all my words out. And so we're located here, man. And the whole purpose with Black Coffee, with Dig, with Franklin and Anthony, DFW Beauty Studios, Savage Fitness, right? So we all like made a very intentional decision to not move away from East Fort Worth, but specifically kind of this corridor, because there are a lot of Black businesses, and even just businesses, period, but a lot of Black small businesses within this corridor that could really help with the development of, and I think that's what happened with Black Coffee, right? Like, I think Mia was very intentional on what she wanted Black Coffee to be. And I think the more we bring people in that are from the community, have a heart for the community, and not just outside developers, right? Because outside developers are going to bring in what they want to bring in. But when you have people that are from there and have a vision and a heart and a care, and also the business acumen, I think great things can happen. And I think that's what we're seeing with, places like Black Coffee. And so if we can continue to keep that kind of going, along with things that are being brought in, and with a mix, right? So you bring in the Chick-fil-A. Hey, we can have a Chick-fil-A on the east side, man. Let's do it. But sit down restaurants, you know what I mean? And have some restaurants that are actually go in, sit down, take your family to, Like those, like you had that back, you know, a while back. I ain't gonna say back in the day because I don't, you know, I ain't that old. I'm still a young guy. But you had those things on the east side, and they kind of just gradually faded out over time. I think the only one right now that I know that's on Lancaster is the Dixie House, right, where you can go in, sit down, and eat. You know, Smokies unfortunately had shut down because of the pandemic. That was a barbecue joint down the street. So it's, you know, just bringing those type of things back and making sure you have people who are concerned about the community at the table and not just concerned about the dollars, right? Because obviously the money's gonna talk, and that's a known factor. But I believe having people from the community that care, and even people that want to bring their business to this side of town, that are from this side of town, I think there's a lot of opportunities for that if we just reach in and help provide resources, right? I think thinking outside the box is going to be key in what this development looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, me and you become a lot closer due to leadership class and just us being able to connect there. But you always kind of talk about the history of Black success in Fort Worth and kind of mention this. Can you kind of give kind of, you know, that kind of elevator speech or kind of a little pitch about what Black businesses used to look like in Fort Worth and how they actually, you know, did a lot for the city?
Man, Black. So we're actually in so we got so I want to talk about the history, but what we're doing right now, we're actually working with an artist to create a mural to kind of show that picture, right? That shows the history of kind of Black business, entrepreneurship from the past to present, and then what it looks like going into the future. And so we're working with an artist to create that mural, and it's going to be on East Lancaster. So it'll kind of fit in with everything that's happening. But just showing like, man, so when people talk about William McDonald, right, Gooseneck McDonald, you also have, you know, some of the Brooks family, you have the Hardiman family, you have there's a lot of families, Black families that had businesses thriving, right? When you talk about, you know, people talk about Black Wall Street, right, up in Oklahoma, but fail to realize like we had a thriving Black Wall Street community here in the city of Fort Worth. And when the Great Depression happened, right, when the banks and all that, like it was just a big crash here in Fort Worth, the Black community, Black banks actually helped bail out parts of the city and white communities going through at that time because our money circulated within our own community and we wasn't necessarily a part of the ecosystem of the whole deal, right? Yeah. Our money stayed within our community. So we were able to keep that money and actually help bail out parts of the city. And so I think like that type of history here in our city is key. You know, when you talk about downtown and over there by I Am Terrell, like they had nightclubs, they had jazz clubs, they had all these things where, you know, it was just live, man. And to see and know parts of where that history has just gone away, like there's no one talking about it, and then there's no like landmarks to say, man, this is what that was. So we really want to just try and bring that back as we begin to talk more about economic development, entrepreneurship, Black business, especially in a time and when, you know, you look at the makeup of contracts that are going to the city or the county. I think now is a good opportunity for, you know, us to really start speaking on that and talking to that, because just holistically, when you talk about social justice and social issues, especially if you go back even to the 60s when all these civil rights things were happening, like it was the Black businesses that were supporting and funding a lot of these efforts. And so if you can have that and grow that, right, then you don't have to go outside to ask and look for money to help with our kids or with what's going on. You got it locally and it's built from within, you know, so it just kind of eliminates some of the red tape is the hope.
Yeah, talking about like you mentioned the city contracts going out right now, like traditionally that's been very heavily in the hands of like white male owned businesses, and the city is setting out to make sure that minorities and female owned businesses are getting more of a seat at the table now. Have you and your company like felt them make an effort to reach out to that community, or is it still just kind of like, if you know to go apply for these contracts, you know, hopefully you get lucky? Like, has there been outreach behind it, or is it more still, does it still feel more like closed off?
No, I think they are. I truly do believe they are. I think there's still a communication gap, right? I think on both ends, from the city and from maybe some of the contractors trying to get contracts, or vendors trying to get contracts from the city. And so it's a yes and, right? So yes, they are reaching out. I do feel like they're trying to make some definite headway in that area. Even so much, so, I mean, just the things that they send out. So we've done a couple of deals with the city in terms of MBE certifications and workshops, and trying to get people certified to get that MBE certification. But one of the things also is, even without the certification, like how many Black owned or Latino owned or Asian owned businesses are getting those contracts with or without, just because they have the quality of work. And so just trying to have that conversation, like whether they have the certification or not, like what are those barriers to get them in? And so just having those sit down meetings, conversations, and bringing other vendors and people to the table to tell their experience, I think has helped out a lot here in the last, I would say probably the last 6 to 8 months. It's really been, I think the city has done quite a bit to engage in that. And even before, you know, they've loosened up some of the requirements. They expanded, I think, from 15% to 25%, trying to get MBE participation. And so I think the more they kind of continue to go down that pathway, and I know there's folks, Christina Brooks, Gwen Wilson on the inside that are trying to help, or even Robert trying to help really bring more awareness to those things. And there's been a couple of initiatives that they started. So no, I think it's a yes and. Yes, they're working, and we can do more.
Yeah. So I know also Community Frontline has been doing a lot of events around economic development as well. You guys I know you did the thing with Facebook. I think you recently just did something with Christina with the financial loan program. I'm going to mess up the acronym. I think it's like CDFI.
CDFIs, yes.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So yeah, what are you guys doing positioning Community Frontline to help in this space?
Yeah, so right now, a big focus is on small business, and again, specifically Black and brown small businesses, really trying to, so what we saw and what we've seen, but definitely saw during the 2020 pandemic, with everything that happened, with having to shut down, business slowing down. So what we did was we helped several businesses try to get PPP loans, try to get marketing still out, saying, hey, we're still open. You can come pull up, you know, drive through, get the mask and the hand sanitizer, all that. We were just like, hey, what can we do? Let's help them out. But during that process, what we saw was, you know, there were businesses that had been in business for 15, 20, 10 years that never did a W-9, or didn't know what a P&L statement was, or didn't know what, you know, certain certifications was. And it was just like, wow, you know, you guys have been running business and you've been around forever, but just bookkeeping, just the business side of things in terms of paperwork, right? In terms of getting the accounting and getting the dollars, like it just was, hey, whatever we got is what we got, and we're gonna keep moving how we moving. Like, we're not trying to do too much more than that. And so what that kind of showed us was a couple of things. One, if that's what business want to be, great, but I think there's some ways we can help, not even look at scaling, with just being more proficient and kind of more on top of things when it comes to just these type of, like, this is a once in a lifetime crisis, hopefully once in a lifetime crisis. But just when other stuff hits, it just kind of shows how easy it is for small businesses and businesses that are operating in Black and brown communities to kind of go under a tank when one thing hits, because they're just operating off of what they got, right? And if you don't have anything beyond that, it's kind of hard. Sorry about that. It's kind of hard to really have a nest egg to kind of hold your own. And so what we ended up doing was, one, we wanted to make sure we were networking and providing spaces and opportunities for those businesses to get together, get to know one another, learn from one another, and just create kind of that incubator. Say, hey man, I'm doing this at this stage, you're doing this at that stage. What did you learn? What did you grow? How did, and just kind of bouncing all of that stuff off each other. So we've seen a lot of fruit from that, from businesses that are just starting out to businesses that have been around, like I said, the 15, 20 years, and even bringing in technology, media. So we did the deal with Facebook at Black Coffee, but even after that, we did another deal with Facebook to where they came in and taught how to utilize Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, in terms of all these free marketing tools that they provide for your business, without even having to have a website. So if you sell products, you can sell your products on Facebook without a fee, right? Or you can market to specific demographics. If you want to be specific at 76105, 76104, 76112, you only want to market to that zip code because that's where you are, so we kind of created those type of things to be able to sit down and say, okay, this is what we can do. But even beyond that, the thing we had a forum this week, man, this is crazy. This week. And I think this is what you're talking about, was so it was talking about money, right? Money, banking, and CDFIs. And so there's been a lot of conversation with the city about these CDFIs and kind of what they're doing and what they're bringing with CDFI friendly. But what we wanted to do was, since the CDFIs are not the actual funding piece, they have to go to the banks to actually get the funding from. And so we brought in Chase, Bank of America, Frost, First Financial. So kind of wanted different levels of banking. So local, state, and then obviously your national guys. Yeah. And then we brought in CDFI called Truth Fund to kind of just speak to, one, banking and some of the barriers that small businesses, Black, brown communities too, right? So just low economic communities face when it comes to getting a bank account, right? Or even getting a loan or a line of credit. Like, what are those barriers? What are those things that you come up against? And how do we kind of tackle those things and provide opportunities for the business and the people? If you're going and looking for a house, right? How do you get pre-approved? If you're a business and you're looking to purchase or even just get a business loan, what does it take, right? So kind of have some high level conversations around that and got people connected to the CDFI and to banks to be able to have more, because, and what a lot of people don't know, especially I'm gonna say what I didn't know, growing up, I didn't really learn probably until my late 20s, early 30s, was how important it was to have a relationship with the bank that you bank at, right? And the more local you can get with their relationship, the easier it is sometimes to get things kind of pushed through, and someone advocating for you, like with inside, the banking system. Because a lot of times, man, you just showing up and you're like, man, I ain't got no credit, I ain't got no, but I can do it. Like, I got a job, I got a career, I'm good for it, without having somebody to actually advocate and speak on your behalf. It's almost always a no, versus if you got an advocate inside, you at least got a chance of increasing that percent.
Yeah, you were telling. I mean, yeah, when we sit down, I feel like we talk about, a recent story I saw is how a Black business owner with good credit gets the same amount of loan as a white business owner with bad credit, and a white person with good credit gets twice as much loans as the Black person with the good credit. So you kind of really opened up kind of what I think is like what you guys are doing so important is you opened up what is kind of the difficulty of like trying to figure out this nuance. And I remember sitting with you having coffee, and you kind of said it like, man, Black and brown first generation kids, they get taught how to win the rules, right? Pay your taxes, go to college, do these things, where like white kids grow up learning how to bend or maneuver the rules. Hey, you can do this thing, or like do this when you do that. And like you just talked about, you know, being, you know, you said, you know, learning this stuff in your late 20s, early 30s. Hell, I don't have a relationship with my bank, and I'm in my early 30s. I'm like writing that one down. And I was like, dang, Dante, I got to see like what's that touch point look like. So how do you feel like, how do we solve that? I feel like that is something that like, how do we educate kids? You know, and I think, you know, we talked about your kids earlier, and we talked about the future of Fort Worth. Like, what do you think? How can we help kids, you know, and help kind of people navigate those spaces?
Yeah, so I think part of, and shout out to the chambers, but definitely the Forward Chamber. We did a deal with them, I think it was last year, maybe. And it's a couple other entities that's doing some things with bringing kids and students from Fourth ISD into small businesses and showing them kind of what it takes to do these type of things, those that have kind of the entrepreneurial mindset, and was able to sit down and have some of those conversations. So I think bringing students to, and then us going to the students, is one way, because I think they have to learn from people that are actually doing it, and see them doing it and have some real conversations about it. But then two, because again, I statement, growing up, like, we didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about, the only thing we knew, bills are due. Mama gonna pay the bills. Don't you worry about it. You got food, right? You got food in the kitchen. Eat the food, and don't worry about none of this money talk. I got to deal with it. But I think the more we can educate our kids kind of on that level, because a lot of parents don't know, right? And a lot of parents in the communities that we serve with Frontline are in survival mode, right?
Yep.
So if I'm in survival mode, like you talking to me about money management is really just managing and paying these bills on time and making sure my kids are good. And so I think in order to help them get out of that phase of life is having them help, like, build and understand why the parents themselves, and then they can start having the conversations with the kids on that level. But then another conversation is like having a incubator, right? Like having a spot to where you have all levels of businesses and all levels of people, right? So young, middle, old, they can just come into a space and get information, right, in their community, though. Because I think there's a couple, I don't think, not at least what I'm thinking right now, right? So there's a ideal of having a business incubator, but what does that look like? What does that mean? And for us, it's more so like for anyone, whether you have a business or not, if you just want to learn information, because I think your home is like a small business too. You know what I'm saying? If you really look at it. And so if you can manage your household bills, you can like learning how to just manage that piece of it. Your family business, right? Like hey, family business. We have a business of this family, and this is how we operate. And I think taking that and applying that to small business, right? So just understanding the term business goes a lot of different ways. And so I would like to see something like that created to where it's small, it's business minded, but not just in the sense of a goods provided, but the family unit as well.
Talking about kids and Community Frontline, like, kids are obviously out for the summer now. What types of things do you guys have planned for the summer? Do you have anything planned for Juneteenth that's like open to the community? I'd love to hear about what Community Frontline's got going on this summer. Yeah, man.
So we are we're getting back to movie nights. So movie nights are kind of one of the things that we done in the past that were really good. So we're back to doing that. I think we have one coming up on the 23rd. And then what we do is we, go to the MLK Center, go outside, get the big projector, and we just play movies. I think so when it was cold, we did like s'mores, and we do popcorn, drinks, candy, all that, just free and open for the community. and just let the kids come out and have a blast, man. And they love it. And the families love it because they can come, whether they want to watch the movie or they just want to let the kids be free outside for a little bit. So that's one thing that we're doing, and that'll be kind of monthly throughout the summer. We're doing that, as well as we're still partnering with MBK and Dog Bookshop. So there's some culture enrichment classes we're doing, with focus on the youth, but they're for everybody. Just kind of getting kids out to kind of continue to grow an understanding of the culture, their culture specifically, and being able to kind of just dive into some of that. So that's kind of an education piece that we're doing this summer, and that'll go through. And that's leading us to a deal that we're trying to actually kick off next summer. Would be a culture enrichment tour that would take kids on kind of a couple of college tours, but also historical markers throughout the South, so that they can kind of go and see and visit and touch the things that they're learning about and actually see them in person. So this summer is kind of the precursor to that. As far as Juneteenth, man, we're just supporting other events. So this year we're not doing the whole. Last year, we were a part of the openly walk. We kind of did some things with that. This year, we're going to support that and support there's several events going on. So, we try not to kind of create more of the same, right? Instead, we want to just support what's out there, man. So it's stuff happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because I think Monday is the official holiday. But I think for a lot of us, because a lot of the guys definitely are just gonna take that Sunday, man, and just
Father's Day,
be dads. That's Father's Day, man. And so that's one thing. So it's kind of the gift and a curse, right? With getting Juneteenth as the national holiday. Like, there's a lot of attention on that day, that weekend. But for those of us that know, that's always been a deal too, to where it's a struggle for Black fathers getting kind of their due. And so right now, like we've been having conversations kind of internally and kind of just throughout some of the community members, just about that perspective, right? Like, how do we not lose Black fathers in the midst of Juneteenth celebration? Because there's it's just a deal to where, man, Black fathers already get a bad just spin in life and the media and all this stuff. So how do we continue? Like, how do we celebrate those that are still doing well and celebrate Juneteenth? And so it's kind of just that dynamic where, hey, man, don't forget his father. Like, I got a shirt on right now that says, proud, dope Black father. But it's like, we can't lose that perspective as we celebrate Juneteenth, especially within the Black community. And I feel like there's been, like, everything that's happening on that Sunday, people have been asking, hey, man, y'all coming out? Y'all gonna be a part? No, I'm gonna be a daddy that day. I'm gonna celebrate myself, my kids. Hopefully they give me, something to eat. That's all I'm gonna do. Give me a good steak. But yeah, man, so Juneteenth wise, like I said, we just gonna support, and then we really want to just lift up dads for Father's Day is a big piece also.
Cool. Kind of talking about like the cultural enrichment tour and Opal Lee and Juneteenth. Like, we've talked a lot about how does Fort Worth become a hub for Black tourism, and like there's talks of the National Juneteenth Museum coming, the old KKK building being converted and redone. Like, what do you think needs to happen or could happen for Fort Worth to become sort of like an Atlanta or even Birmingham, Montgomery, where we get to highlight Black tourism and Black history and lift that up in a way that has young people coming and wanting to learn about the history of that in Fort Worth and in Texas? And in
context, Dante, just in case, because we talk about this on the pod a lot. So we talk about this kind of idea of, there's opportunity where rather than people coming to the stockyards, coming to Fort Worth to just go to stockyards, there's now going to be people who are like, oh, I want to come see the National Juneteenth Museum. And Fort Worth has this opportunity that Jimmy shared to maybe start telling that Fort Worth story. If you look at like DC and the African History Museum, like that new museum is like what people crave. And I feel like our generation, we're not as much about like going to Vietnam War museums and Korean War museums. We want to go to museums like about our people. And so I feel like there's this massive space there. So that was a lot of the combos we've had, multiple pods. So go back to whatever you were going to say. I just wanted to make sure you had context.
I think so. So this has been a conversation for, so maybe not the openly museum, but there's been a couple of Black history museums that have kind of, for at least the last couple of years, that conversations have been centered around bringing something like that to it. And so I think you said it perfect, at least in my estimation, is it's the youth, right? So how do you get youth involved and at the table? Because right now, a lot of the conversations are some of our elders or older folks having these conversations. And so when you talk about the DC Museum and you talk about Atlanta and you talk about even, when I went to Virginia and went and toured some of the things in Virginia, like there is a feel of like youthfulness in that, and like community-based people kind of put some of those things together. And so I think that has to be a huge part of it that's going to draw people, especially draw tourism and young folk and old folk, right? Like to want to be a part of it. I think we have to get a lot more youth involved, younger generation folks involved, with how to actually market and put those type of things out, and even what's going to be in it, right? Like, what does it look like? How does it? Because there's the Lenora, go mess up her name, godly. There's a Black museum on the South Side right now. Lenora is the historical genealogical. I can't say it. Genealogical museum, and it's a Black museum on the South Side that has a lot of history. There's a Stop Six Heritage Museum that sits on the campus of Young Men's Leadership Academy, has a lot of history of Stop Six. There's another, I think there's one in Como that has a lot of and they're small little hubs, right? But like those things exist now, but they also are ran by our elders. And so trying to get that information out about these things and what they look, because a lot of great information, and if we kind of bring these bigger museums in that kind of ran the same way, like how do we have to kind of bring about some type of difference in that. So I think the merging of generations to help create what that looks like and bring in, I think what I would like to see is still even more so, like, so I think the NAACP did a deal 1 or 2 years ago, and even Visit Forward did something about the history of kind of some of the South Side. And as you walk kind of over by the NAACP office, like some of the names and businesses and people that were over in that area, like the more we highlight the history of Fort Worth, like the Black history of Fort Worth, I think that's going to get more people interested and committed to this idea of this Black History Museum from Fort Worth, because it's a lot of history here, man, that's just not tapped into. So I would love to see kind of those type of marketing things going forward as whatever, because it sounds like we're going to have 2 new museums coming in, and whatever that looks like, I think is great. But I think the marketing and the people behind it just has to blow up and grow a lot more to get the attention I think we need and want to have for it.
Yeah, my fear is that this museum is going to be like the Alamo or like the Mona Lisa, where it's like it's going to be overhyped, and then people are going to show up and be like, "This is all y'all did. This is what y'all did. Like this it." And like, I hope the city needs to understand they need to be more proactive and see the genuine opportunity in front of us. Like, I think the opportunity to, in DFW, where people travel a lot for conferences, for associations, for sporting events, we have, we don't need another soccer field.
Yeah.
We can invest in being a hub for Black tourism, especially with, the KKK headquarters in Fort Worth. There has to be so much real stuff we need to be sharing about what's going on and making it super impactful. But I don't know if the city got the juice like that and has the vision. So we'll see what happens.
I think to your point, EJ, and unfortunately, I think the politics get involved in it, because who we have been as a city. I see it shifting slightly, right? Slightly. But I think the politics get in the way a lot of times of us doing those type of great things and reaching outside of our comfort zone as a city. Um, and I see there's a lot of potential for us to be able to do that. But we do got to get out of playing the old politics, you know. And I don't know, people say the old fourth way and all that. But whatever, because that means different things for different folks, right? So I think if we can grow and get uncomfortable as a city, we can see some really great things.
Yeah, I guess, question on that. City council, what's your, we have a young city council who looks more like, this room. How do you feel about, it's been a year.
Yep.
How do you feel like the group's doing? Where do you feel like the city's going?
So I would say it's good, and there's a lot of opportunity to grow, right? I say it's good because of everything that we just talked about, right? Getting younger allows, because the younger the city council gets, is more representation of what the actual city looks like in terms of median age and stuff like that. But there's also room to learn how to navigate that system. It's a huge system, right? And how to play the game, because it's a game that they're, how to maneuver the pieces that need to be maneuvered, while also staying true to who you are and representing the community. I feel like all of that has played out in several different ways, good and bad, right? So if we talk about the Tatiana Jefferson case, we've seen a lot of things, a lot of good efforts with bad outcomes, right? Or not so good outcomes. If you want to talk about small business ventures with, the city started a small business committee thing, but no small business are represented on that committee. And they kind of switched gears and kind of went to another deal. So, I think there are some good ideas and some good kind of moving in some different direction. But just kind of needs to be a little more tailored. Some different folks probably being brought to the table, but then just learning the system, right? So even with Maddie, the mayor, having experience of being there with Betsy and all of that, she still has, like, that's depending on where you are, right? That's either a knock, that's either a plus or a minus, right? But for her, like, she has to create who is she as the mayor, right? Because a lot of people are still putting her in the Betsy spot, again, good or bad. But, like, who are you and who are you? Like, what stamp are you going to leave? What's your legacy for your position as mayor now? Likewise, for some of the younger guys who came in and took over some older guy's spot, right? Well, so it's like, how do you leave your legacy? Even though you're for a community, are you still for a community? Are you learning how to be more inclusive of the entire city? What does equity look like, right? Like, how are we talking about equity? How are we giving power to the community or to staff to help the community? So I think right now my grade on the council, if I were to give a grade, is I don't know. It's a I don't know, man. Because, like I say, I would say that they're at a position to where it's just been a lot of learning from my perspective.
Yeah,
on how to navigate a lot of what's happening around the city, and still trying to come out of the pandemic too, and dealing with just everything they're dealing with. So yeah, I don't know right now, man. I'm still, because I thought I would have. We had a conversation around some of this, man. And I thought I would have a better, like, stance. Like, no, this is how I feel. This is where I think they are. But yeah, no, I think they're still learning. I think they have a lot of room, and so I would like to afford grace for that, just to see how they move to be able to allow them to work. You know what I mean? A lot of times we don't give people that opportunity to, like, all right, you've been there a year. That's most new people on any new job, their first year in, they're not killing it, right? put it into sports, right?
Yeah.
Like you got some LeBrons, you got some Kobe's, but even Kobe didn't kill it his first year, right? So, you just put people in and let them have that space to kind of grow and matriculate and see how things pan out. So that's kind of where I am right now with the council.
Last minute questions. Dope, man. You got any last thing anything you wanna share or didn't share, or things coming up? This is like the last. This is your free reign.
Free reign right now, just to go, man. So one, appreciate you guys, man. This is dope, man. The opportunity just to come on. Like I said, I still view myself as just a kid from the phone, man. Really just humbled and honored to be able to be in the rooms with guys like you, and to be able to have a voice and speak on behalf of myself and community that we represent. So I would just say, man, to whoever may be listening to this, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of good things happening in our city. A lot of people wanting to do a lot of good work. A lot of grassroots groups coming up right now that are just looking for support to help change the narrative, to help change the way certain things look in the community, from gardens to gun violence to education to the list is long, man. So I would just say anywhere and anyone you see doing it, like, just help.
Yeah.
In any way you can help, right? Whether that's sharing a stream, sharing a flyer, giving $1, giving an hour, giving 30 minutes, whatever that is. Just try to, I think the more we can do that, the better we'll see our community. And also, I think giving grace to one another to be able to say some dumb stuff, right? To say, like, I may say something ignorant or dumb and not know, but then also being willing to educate and step in and actually build relationships to kind of help see those things that we may not have known, or someone may view different and maybe a different light. So I think those are the last parting words I would like to leave us with, man. Just help each other and show each other grace.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. I know we've been trying to get this done for a hot minute, so we gracefully got there and we made it happen. So, man, really enjoy connecting always, and thank you for coming on to the pod.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Talk to you soon, Dante. That was a great conversation. There was a lot in there that I feel like we both really related to and definitely got a lot out of. Was there anything that stood out to you?
Honestly, the whole me not being a father, of the two, I guess you and him, me not being a father, I see how much like grace and patience he has just as a person. And then just thinking about the Father's Day comment in the middle, among Juneteenth, is such something that someone like myself could lose sight of and never have that aha moment until I was a father. So just like seeing and hearing that was just a good note. I felt like a good nugget for me. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially since like Juneteenth is a holiday that like I observe, but it's not a holiday for me,
Yeah.
Not recognizing that overlap and figuring out how to properly observe and celebrate Black fathers alongside that same holiday.
Yeah.
And I love his ideas of how do we bring youth to the table, both from like school age kids to younger professionals and younger families, and how do we get them involved to make sure that the things and areas in which Fort Worth is developing are driven by people that are going to be around here, frankly, a lot longer than the people who've traditionally had that seat at the table.
Yep. Yeah. And sorry for, jumping in on your question around Black tourism.
No, I think it was good. I think it was good to clarify.
Because what I was worried about was he was talking about how there was nothing for like Black professionals.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't want to be like, well, I mean, like, it's kind of like the same thing. We just don't got anything. I was like, so it's like, you know, but I think once we got him on that path, you can kind of see like he really lit up to talk about it. And I think I know city people and people at the city listens to Fort Worth 817 podcasts. So like, I think this topic, you know, is a topic that we continue to talk about, Black tourism, and are we holding our end of the bargain, Fort Worth? We're not just doing it to say we did it, you know, and I'm not talking about Black Cowboy Museum. I'm talking about real history, people. All right. Yeah, I think us pushing that, and you just see a lot of other things that we push and talk about really get discussed. You know, I think, what was the article that was out? Ramin, you saw this article and you're like, I don't know if this article would have been written if it wasn't talked about in the podcast. I think
it was one of the like housing ones.
Yeah. Like e-housing, how many corporate people are in buying houses? Because we've been saying that for a year now.
Yeah.
You know? So it's cool to just see his ideas though around economic development. I also thought that was a good part too, where he was just kind of talking about navigating and him taking responsibility of like, it's both sides. Like, how do you feel like when you asked the construction contract, he was like, he didn't complain. He's like, honestly, it's both sides. You know, our side figuring it out while them giving us grace to do so, and them figuring it out and us coming together. So I thought a lot of that was good.
Yeah, totally. Well, again, thanks a ton to Dante for coming on. I'm glad we finally got to have this conversation. And yeah, if you want to get in touch with Dante, I think his information, like, we can put information about dig contracting in the bio, and Community Frontline if you are looking for ways to get involved.
Cool. Take care, everyone, and see you next time.
Dopamine swipe, follow us like double tap. Now they control your life, control your life.